gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Titans Talk Show once again. It's a pleasure. We have somebody very interesting with us, somebody who dresses up very well, very sharply, and I've been watching him for the last 2 days. He's wearing an even more gorgeous bow tie and pocket square. And yesterday he had worn a lovely black shirt, and I wish I had a picture of it to show. Please join me in welcoming Nana to the show. Nana, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Nana means different things in different languages, and I'm sure you already know that by now.
Yes, certainly.
So, welcome. And,
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. What we will do over the next few minutes, Nana, we'll talk about your journey. We'll talk about your contribution. So, Nana, just for those of you who don't know him, is places social responsibility above everything else. He believes that businesses and organizations need to be socially aware and responsible and conscious. While profit is not a bad word, you clearly need to have social in one of the two or top three buckets. So, Nana, tell us about your journey so far.
So, career-wise or just life?
Both.
Okay, so, well, I was born in a small village back home, and, and I come from a pretty large family of uncles and aunties, So growing up, I actually saw my aunties, the women in our family, really powerful, strong personalities. In fact, they literally controlled everything. They could fight the boys and do all sorts of things. So I grew up seeing my aunties actually in control, and of course, very strong women. And that actually influenced a lot of things in my life later on, which I'll say briefly later. Grew up partly back in West Africa, then went to school in the UK, and then primary school, secondary school, then university as well, and then did my university master's in Ghana, my executive MBA. So back and forth, which was good because it exposed me to different cultures, met lots of interesting people. And then, of course, later on in life, after college, I decided that I really wanted to do something different that will impact society. So between 17 and 19, I was actually traveling on the road in West Africa. Yes, I was in West Africa from Ghana, traveled all the way to Liberia, went to different places, Guinea, Mali, all sorts. So I was just 17. I left home when I was 17. I said to my parents, "Thank you very much. You've done a great job. I like to discover the world for myself." And so for 2 years, I was in West Africa, traveling from country to country, hitchhiking, working here and there. And I saw a lot of different things, and which really inspired me, which was um, when I was around poor people, and the same in my family, the rich and the poor side, the poor people in my family and the poor people I saw on the road whilst I was traveling, they inspired me so much because some places I go to, and they have only one chicken for the whole family, like 10, 15 people. But they will share whatever they had. And they'll have a big bowl on the table, and we'll all eat. The kids, everybody will eat from the big, massive bowl. And those experiences started to shape my thinking. But it also raised questions in my mind that why this poverty? Why all of these challenges? Why are people getting sick with no money to go to hospital? Why are people in such difficult and challenging situations? I started asking myself lots of questions and also asking people. So between 17 and 19, I was doing that, traveling across West Africa. 19, I got to the UK, got back to the UK, and I decided when I got to the UK that I didn't tell many people this, but I decided I'm going to have an impact. I want to do something that will bring about some sort of social change. But I knew that I couldn't really do it properly, effectively through government. And I thought I would do it through the private sector because I'll have more freedom to do what I want to do. So my life started out, working in social housing, helping people who were homeless, people who needed affordable accommodation in the UK. And after that, I went into consultancy, basically helping different organizations to understand the need to rethink. I was really, of course, very young, 20, 21, but I felt like a really old spirit in myself, So unfortunately as well, because I grew up with my grandparents a lot of the time when I was growing up, very as a kid, They also influenced my thinking. Their music became my music, and their culture became my culture. So I could talk to anyone, elderly and very young. But I was very young. I could talk to elderly people. So I decided I was going to have this impact. So moving from social housing, I went into consulting, and from consulting decided I'm going to go to college, university. And so I went to university, read law, and the whole idea was that law and technology. And the whole idea was that I was going to set up an organization later that would do something different. So I wanted to learn law, business development, and that's why I did the MBA later. And so between going to university, finish university, then I went straight into technology, you know, learning about project management through project management. From project management, I really did not enjoy project management the traditional way, with a spreadsheet and with a book and calculating the pennies. I didn't really enjoy it. And I slowly started to ask myself questions about, is there a better way to do project management? I started experimenting with my own ideas. And that's what really took me into this agile journey,
Okay.
where I began to hear different things about different ways of building, developing projects, of doing software, and the rest is history. I became Scrum Master later. I went into agile project management, product ownership. I started working in the IT space. And I did a few interesting things. Worked my way up all the way, and later on, into the boardroom, where I started working with, very large companies. Um, and then somewhere, after that, I then decided, what, I've had some really good exposure in the private sector. So I've got this project management experience. I've got the legal stuff. I've got technology. I've been through the chain of command, been in the boardroom. I thought, what, I also want to do something in the public sector. So I then decided to do something with Ghana Police,
Oh, wow.
and became advisor to the Chief of Police, the Inspector General of Police in Ghana.
Was it easy?
No, it wasn't easy, but they were very supportive and they wanted transformation. So I did quite a few years in the Ghana Police Service, supporting, developing transformation projects, transformation ideas. So I did my bit in the public sector. Then I left. I went back to the private sector. After then I decided to set up Akaditi, which is basically our organization, which is basically an agile organization. We're a tech company, a technology company. However, we do transformation for different Fortune 500 companies and also for small startups. Apart from transformation, and we also do events. So the whole idea of the events is to create communities. And these communities in the UK, we do agile events in the UK, Scrum Day London, and we also do these agile events also in Ghana. We're going to be doing in Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, and South Africa later. But the whole thrust of everything that I do, the common thread that runs through everything that I do is that I want to do things that impact people in a meaningful way. So when people say, what is it that drives you all the time? I say, I'm a socially responsible entrepreneur. I want to do things that will impact society, that will develop people. And that's why this agile journey, and that's why the company that I set up, Akaditi, doing transformation for companies like KLM, like Vodafone,
Wow.
MTN, Capital One Bank, big corporations, but also small companies, and also the technology that we put together, which is basically helping people to address financial inclusion. So in the financial digital services space, or digital financial services, mobile money, and having access to a wallet that a lot of people in Africa, this is recent and also going back a few years, are not, they don't have bank accounts or they're not properly served in many parts of the developing world.
Right.
So fintech, financial technology, and e-commerce became areas that I thought trade, helping people to buy and sell across Africa, the African diaspora, but also in terms of financial inclusion. So when you look at transformation that I do or the company does with different organizations, It's all about adding value to the human experience. Because if we don't transform the human being, how can the human being transform the organization? How can the human being create technology that will make the world a better place? And the same thing about the technology that we do. It's all about transforming people's lives, making lives much easier. The events we do is all about bringing communities together. So, in a nutshell, um, I am much more into helping people to understand their potential so that they can add value to whatever they're doing.
If you were not in technology, Nana, where would you be today? Or if you were not doing this, what would you ideally be doing or would have liked to do?
I think I will be a farmer.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I'll be a farmer
Wow. And why do you say that?
because
Because you
just watching nature and just being out in nature, the beauty and the peace of
never heard
nature,
this
just being out there in the open and sitting there and looking at the sunrise and looking at the crops and just watching where the food comes from. One of the things that make me laugh these days is that when you ask some kids, where do you get chicken from? They say KFC.
before. KFC.
And they forget that it comes from a farm. So ideally, I would have loved to have a vegetable farm, to have a simple small farm where I can just basically grow some food and some crops and organic food. And so yeah, so farming would have been. Although I wanted to be a pilot
Uh-huh.
when I was a teenager,
Now you're talking.
I wanted to be a pilot. So I got a nickname, pilot. I want to be a pilot. I had lots of uncles who were pilots, and first officers, and that's inspired me as well. I thought, this is so cool. I love their uniforms,
Yeah.
and I thought, yeah, I look like a pilot actually. So, but really, if we're talking about today, um, I would go into farming.
So considering that that's what you think you would have liked to do, is there something on your future roadmap that will reach out to farmers and help them with something?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Looking at applications that will bridge the gap between farmers and get people that, they want credit, or between farmers and suppliers, and just using apps to really connect local farmers, to other farmers, and local farmers to suppliers, local farmers to markets not just in Ghana, but across Africa and worldwide. So that's an area that I would love to go into. And on the farm, of course, I will have a barn, and the barn will be like your Tony Stark's lab, Iron Man lab. So I love the whole, like the Wakanda Black Panther film,
I love it.
the lab. So I will have a barn. I'll have a tech lab in there, but I'll be on a farm.
How, what does agile mean to you?
Agile, really, for me, it's about continuous improvement. Yeah, Kaizen. The Japanese call it Kaizen. It's about continuous improvement. It's about finding ways to keep challenging yourself and to keep improving on what you're doing, and to make sure that you stay relevant, to make sure that you become more responsive, to make sure that you're able to understand things quicker by adopting a process, a way of working that will enable you to continuously improve. Because what's the end goal in terms of agile? It's continuous improvement. Agile gets you started, but Kaizen, or continuous improvement, keeps you going and makes it more sustainable. So agile really is a mindset. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of leading, it's a way of doing things, it's a way of organizing work, but it's a whole different set of culture as well, because it has principles and values. The whole point around agile really is to get you started so you can do transformation, a bit quicker. You can deliver things a little bit quicker. You change the way people work in terms of working in teams, cross-functional, small teams, delivering value very quickly to the market, taking away all the layers that slow teams down, and to be able to get things out faster, making customers really happy. So for me, agile, people talk about agile like it's a religion. They make it sound as if it's some sort of like an evangelist. Yeah, I'm not an evangelist. I'm an entrepreneur. I I am agile because it helps my organization. I am agile because it helps me. It's an enabler. It's not a end goal. It's not an end game for me. It's just a road to get there. And the state that I want to get to is to be in that state of Zen. Yeah. Nirvana, Zen, whatever you want to call it. But Kaizen, that whole continuous improvement that we can keep improving is quite key for me. So the focus for me when it comes to Agile is helping people to do what they do best by organizing them in such a way that they can deliver things quicker, better, happier. And so it becomes more as an enabler rather than just some philosophy or some evangelist idea or something. No, it's a business strategy.
Any area that you believe you could have done better, or for want of a better word, a failure that you could go back and redo?
Well, I've failed at least 5 times to release our tech product, which is SocoPay. SocoPay took a while to get to market. So I failed many times in building this wonderful technology that will help very poor people, grassroots people, to be able to buy and sell and pay for stuff and water and electricity and food and taxi. I failed many times, and it was fantastic. It wasn't really fantastic when I was going through the experience, but it made me feel like there was a purpose behind what I was doing. So I definitely, I sold my properties in the UK. I sold anything I can sell, anything I can get my hands on. I borrowed money just to get this product to market, and that's how. So basically, what I did was to make sure that I had no other option. I had to make it work. There was no back door to escape. I burnt the bridges. I burnt the bridges, and of course, it created a lot of challenges for me. But I thought, so 5 times, I failed, and I've been, I could say that I've been a millionaire, but I've also lost it because I invested it again in different things, and so I lost it, and it's not the first time. And so the money is not the issue for me. It's the ability to keep trying. It's the desire. It's the feeling that, what we're trying to do in using technology and all these wonderful ideas to liberate people from poverty, to create abundance, to tap into abundance. What I'm doing with technology in terms of, helping people access technology that will help them in terms of medicine, to have access to medical services, or to have access to finance or credits, all of these things that we're working on, or whether we're transforming organizations, the whole point basically is, we want to try to distribute the wealth in such a way that um, grassroots are able to access opportunities in these big organizations, but opportunities in small organizations, but also opportunities that we have created through technology. And so I see technology more as an enabler for me to help grassroots people to get into the 21st century, because many grassroots people, this horizontal layer, we talk about people into technology. There's 7.1 billion people on the planet. Over 4 billion are not having the benefits that me and you have. You know, they're struggling. They're living on less than $1 a day. And so when we talk about technology, this horizontal layer is something that for me really troubles me a lot. That how do we make the lives of people better by introducing ideas, solutions that will take on all of these wonderful problems that we can help solve. So, I'm really passionate about going to the grassroots.
When do you think would be the time when Nana hangs in the towel and says, I have achieved my purpose for which I set forth. I'm now going to go and become a farmer? When do you think that day will be?
I really do uh, feel that this journey that I'm on, the farming is going to happen alongside what I'm currently doing because I'm no longer working. I've turned my hobby into a way of life. So I'm no longer working because I stopped working in regular 9 to 5 jobs many, many years ago. And so I've turned my hobby into a way of life. I've turned my life purpose into what I do every day. So when I go to the office, I'm not actually going to an office to do 9 to 5. I'm actually going there to do something that I love doing. So alongside this, as we get more people on board to take on roles, I'm going to give away the CEO position at some point and maybe remain as on the board and then set up other projects like the agriculture, the farming project. So the next few years, I would say not more than 5 years, we're definitely going to see a farm.
What pains your heart when you
What
see out there in the world? What pains you the most?
There's two things that really pains my heart. One is when I was 17 and traveling West Africa, we had the first civil unrest in Liberia. It was almost the first civil war in Liberia. It was almost like a coup. And I saw a lot of people die, children as well. You know, at one point I was on this particular road and in the city of Monrovia, and I just saw blood and dead bodies everywhere. And 17 years old, and that
Yeah,
really shook me
yeah,
up.
absolutely.
And I saw children, and I thought, this is really crazy, and that really pained me a lot. It hurt me a lot, and it's something that still stays with me till now. And it's the reason why later on, when I went to do some work with the police and victim support in the UK and the police service in Ghana, I focused a lot on developing systems in the police service that will enable women and children to be protected. So I really went deep into that. People didn't understand, why am I spending, as a man,
Yeah.
why am I spending so much time building processes, systems, and working in an environment where I'm really passionate about supporting women and children? Because I saw that they were the most vulnerable
Yeah.
in that war situation, in that conflict that I experienced at 17 in Liberia. And that really influenced my worldview. The second one that really pains me a lot um, is poverty. Yeah, poverty, and not just physical poverty in terms of not having food to eat, but you know, it's poverty of the spirit, poverty of the mind. The fact that people who are really struggling at the grassroots level and at different levels in society as well, that somehow they've not been able to unlock their potential. They've not been able to understand the purpose behind their lives. And so they keep going to either religion or they go to politics or they go to all kinds of people. They're looking for answers and something they get taken advantage of. So for me personally, the poverty that exists in the community, in society, where people don't have enough to eat. When I see really poor people, I ask myself, why? Because if I'm heading a country or something, I mean, I know I can't just wave a magic wand
Yeah.
and make things happen,
Yeah.
but surely not everything needs money to organize people. Sometimes people just need organization, help them organize and just to inspire them. And so poverty really, really affects me, apart from seeing people suffer in civil conflicts, people suffering, really poor people suffering, that really hurts me as well. That pains me a lot. And I feel that I think for those of us who've been fortunate, we should definitely be able to do a little bit more. We're talking about technology. To yesterday and today at the World Summit, there's a World CIO Summit, the World 200 CIO Summit, and for me in Dubai. And so for me personally, all of these things we're talking about, it's enabling society to improve. Personally, I think that our world is a bit more civilized, but we're still a bit primitive. Primitive in the sense that women are still struggling to have equal rights. Women are still struggling to be seen, even in the IT world, in the business world, in politics. And the fact that women are not given the opportunity or they're not being allowed to come into that space as equal players, that's, these are some of the things why I say that our world is still a bit primitive. So the two things that really pains me a lot is people suffering in war-torn areas of civil unrest, but also in poverty as well. And I just feel that, you know what, the 21st century belongs to those who become the biggest problem solvers or the people who solve the biggest problems on the planet. So the problem solving for me is the next biggest profession that anyone can take on. And that's why I spoke about, it's not about B2B or B2G or B2E or B2C, it's H2H, it's the human to human connection. That in all of these technological discussions and advancements, we seem to sometimes forget that there are about 3, 4 billion people out there who are not benefiting from this. They're not in the 21st century, you know. So those matters actually do concern. So when I say I'm a socially responsible entrepreneur, I really do mean that in a very deep way, because these are the things that actually make me to. I coach executives in big companies, technology, the transformations that we do, the events that we organize. It's all about our vision, which is making the world a better place by bringing people together to do great things, empowering people to do great things. And that's really what drives me.
Piece of advice to the youngsters out there who are listening to you, to all the young Ghanaians or the people who are wanting to become a Nana 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's the piece of advice you would give them? How would you tell them to start working to want to be you?
So one of the key things that I would share with the community is to say something that helped me. To build your confidence, you have to know your history. You have to know the great history of Africa before ancient Egypt, through to Egypt, and all the great kingdoms and queendoms of Africa, the great civilizations, the technology, the stories about University of Sankore, Timbuktu, in the 15th century, where they had 25,000 students on campus, and they had a medical school doing open heart surgery, open brain surgery, cesarean section. This is in the 15th century. Benin Kingdom, where they had pavements and streetlights. The Portuguese were shocked in 1492. And, there's so many stories about great contributions that Africans have contributed to the world. However, our young people, the education system that we currently have across Africa was handed down to us, by France and Portugal and by British. And so we have I would call it a colonial education system, which is not being turned around. The starting point of your greatness, of your confidence, the desire to want to have a better society, to be a better leader, a better country, is to know yourself, your history. When you know the greatness of your history and how wonderful your history is, then everything you do, it builds your confidence. It adds to your confidence. And that's the reason why today. So, in terms of the message to the people, in terms of young people, well, first of all, I see myself as an ambassador for Africa. That's the reason why I present myself, in a certain way, in terms of the way I carry myself, the way I talk to people, the way I dress. When they said, as you're dressed, so you'll be addressed. And so for me personally, when you look at Africa, it looks politically like a bit of a mess, right. Yeah. But culturally, technologically, socially, in terms of tourism, many other things, it's beautiful. There's so much beauty and strength. And, we hear about, they say 68% or so of the population is under the age of 30. Right. So that's over 700 million people under the age of 30. And how do we bring all of them into the 21st century? Not just the haves, those who have, but half of them are ill prepared for the 21st century. Not very educated in terms of being able to take on the skills, the global skills that's required, like what's happening in India, with a lot of technology influence and people exporting technology skills. So for me personally, what I have to say to a lot of young people is this: know your history. My confidence today and my ability to be an executive coach, a life coach, and to do a lot of motivational writing and speaking, and to do technology transformation, all of these wonderful events that we do, is because I know my history. When I watch Black Panther Wakanda, people think it's a joke, but really, when you look at ancient Africa, there was a time that there was this greatness, great civilizations in Mali, the University of Sankore, where they were doing, in the medical school, they had open brain surgery, open heart surgery, cesarean sections. The different kingdoms, like in Benin Kingdom in Nigeria, they had street lights and pavements. The Portuguese were shocked when they saw all of that. So what you find really is that the education system in most parts of Africa is still very much, colonial type education system, because it doesn't really empower or prepare the young people for the global market, not for the Ghanaian market, not for the African market, global market. And for me personally, I think that By knowing yourself and knowing your history, you have a bit more confidence. Of course, slavery and colonization kind of messed with the African development. And so a lot of people, when they think of Africa, within Africa, they only see the things that went wrong, slavery and colonization. They don't see the great things that happened before or what the great things that happened during that period and the great things that are happening today. They only look back and all they see is this negative history and it doesn't help their confidence. So my advice to young people is this: by learning more about yourself, you will learn more about the world, you learn more about your history, you're able to relate to people better, you begin to really appreciate life more, and you can connect with more people. It will build your confidence. Knowing yourself is fundamental, in everything that you do, because you have a level of contentment and a level of satisfaction that you've always contributed to history. And you know what? You continue to contribute to history. And so for me, as I talk to a lot of young people, and they seem to think we don't have anything to offer. What does Africa contribute? I said, Africa has contributed a lot. You just don't know because you don't read the right books, because the universities don't teach you the right things, and you're not exposed through your families to all of this information. So if you want to know how to become great, it starts first by feeling great, by knowing yourself, who you are inside. And that really will empower you to begin to do great things in the world. So it's really about knowledge of yourself.
So, for me, ladies and gentlemen, Africa has always been and is the cradle of civilization. I always say that I've had some great experiences. I know a few good friends there. Takeaways, Nana, for me, know your history. Stay rooted to where you are. Dress up for success. I like what you said. You will be addressed as you dressed. Dress up for success and make sure you give back to community or society.
I have one thing to add.
Please.
That the 21st century, any business in the world today, if you want to grow your business and you want to grow your markets, Africa should be part of your business strategy. It is a developing market. It's a huge market of 1.4 billion people. And guess what? They're incredibly friendly, beautiful people. The opportunities are there. The land is there. The people are ready to work. A lot of people, at least 300 million of these young people, are educated. They are ready to work. So I would like to actually use this opportunity at this World Summit with CIOs, 200 from around the world, and with people like yourself from the Dubai Investment, to say that we are looking at an Africa beyond aid.
Brilliant. On that note, we will close.
Thank
Nana,
you.
it was lovely having you on the show.
The pleasure is mine.
Such a pleasure.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.